West Java, Indonesia, a volcanic mountain. Unremarkable, covered in jungle, visited occasionally by locals who knew its history. Gunung Padang. In Sundanese, it means hill of light. But what lies beneath that hill could change everything we understand about human civilization. The discovery. In 2011, a geologist named Dr. Danny Hillman Natawijaja conducted ground-penetrating radar surveys of Gunung Padang. What he found was shocking. Beneath the surface of the mountain, beneath layers of soil and vegetation, were stones, arranged, stacked, structured, not random, not natural, intentional architecture. The radar revealed multiple layers, each layer separated from the others by soil deposits, each layer older than the one above. The dating problem. Radiocarbon dating of organic material found in the deepest layers suggested something impossible. The lowest layers, the foundation, dated to approximately 27,000 years ago. Possibly older, 27,000 years ago. That's 11,000 years before Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years before agriculture was invented, 14,000 years before the Great Pyramid, during the last ice age, when humans were supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers scattered across continents. Yet something at Gunung Padang suggests otherwise. The structure. The pyramid has multiple levels, each distinctly constructed. The deepest level, potentially 27,000 years old. The foundation, massive stones deliberately arranged. Above that, another layer. Younger, more refined. Above that, another layer, younger still. Like an archaeological time machine. Each layer telling a story of increasing sophistication. The topmost layer relatively recent, still ancient by modern standards, but young compared to the foundation. The scale, Gunung Padang isn't small. It's approximately 100 meters long, 80 meters wide, and 25 meters high. Built entirely from stacked stone blocks. Some blocks weigh multiple tons. All arranged with precision, all fitted together. All intentional. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't natural geology. This is construction. The official denial. Mainstream archaeology rejected the findings immediately. It's a natural geological formation, they said. The dating is wrong, they claimed. It's pseudoscience, they declared. But Dr. Natawijaja has credentials. He's published in peer-reviewed journals. He's presented evidence. Ground-penetrating radar doesn't lie. Radiocarbon dating is established science. Yet the academic world rejected it anyway. Why? Because accepting Gunung Padang means accepting that everything we know about human history is incomplete. The questions. If Gunung Padang is 27,000 years old, then who built it? How did they build it? Why was it built? Where did the builders go? What happened to their civilization? And most importantly, if this exists, what else exists that we haven't found? The implication, Gunung Padang suggests advanced civilization existed during the Ice Age, when ocean levels were lower, when continents were shaped differently, when coastlines were vastly expanded. How many other sites are underwater now, flooded by rising seas after the Ice Age ended? How many civilizations vanished beneath the waves? Gunung Padang is just the surface. The tip of an iceberg, or rather, the peak of a mountain that had an entire pyramid buried inside it. Ground-penetrating radar is used to see through soil, it's established technology. When Dr. Natawijaja pointed GPR equipment at Gunung Padang, the results were undeniable. The layered structure. The radar revealed distinct layers beneath the surface. Not random, organized. Each layer represented a different construction phase. The deepest and oldest layer dated to approximately 27,000 years ago. This is exactly what you'd expect from an archaeological site with multiple occupation periods. The stone arrangement. The radar didn't just detect layers. It detected voids, chambers, and internal structures. Inside the mountain, it found passages and arranged stones in geometric patterns. This is not random geology. This is architecture. The dating controversy. Radiocarbon dating of organic material from the deepest layers suggested 27,000 years ago. but mainstream archaeologists immediately attacked the methodology. The samples were contaminated, they said. The dating is unreliable, they insisted, but alternative dating methods on other samples suggested even older dates. The academic rejection. If the dating was clearly wrong, why not simply publish a counter-study? Instead, the academic world simply rejected the research without thorough investigation. This isn't how science works. When evidence contradicts theory, science investigates. It doesn't ignore. The Indonesian government responds. In 2015, the Indonesian government secured a UNESCO tentative listing for the site. This seemed like validation. But then, excavation was halted. No official reason given. To this day, further excavation remains restricted. Why? Some researchers propose a deliberate cover-up, suggesting institutions profit from the current narrative of human history. If Gunung Padang proves civilization existed 27,000 years ago, textbooks must be rewritten and careers are threatened. The alternative explanation is that Gunung Padang is natural, just a coincidence of stacked volcanic stones. But stone doesn't naturally arrange itself in geometric patterns or create internal chambers. The natural formation theory requires more faith than the human construction theory. Gunung Padang isn't unique. Similar sites exist. The Yonaguni Monument off Japan, the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, Pumapunku in Peru. Every site that doesn't fit the narrative is dismissed as natural or misattributed. But Gunung Padang is older than all of them. This leads to the question nobody answers. Where is the rest of their civilization? If people built Gunung Padang, they lived somewhere. Where is the evidence? Either it's underwater, flooded by rising seas, it's been buried and hidden by time, or it was deliberately destroyed. If Gunung Padang is truly 27,000 years old, then an advanced civilization existed during the Ice Age. They possessed knowledge, then they vanished. The academic world prefers to believe it's all a misunderstanding, but the evidence points toward a lost chapter of our history, and that changes everything. 27,000 years ago is the last Ice Age. Not the end of it, the middle of it, the coldest period. Sea levels were 400 feet lower than today. Coastlines were completely different. What is now ocean was land. Humans were scattered, small populations, hunter-gatherers, supposedly primitive. Yet Gunung Padang suggests otherwise. The historical narrative. We're taught a specific timeline. 10,000 years ago. Agriculture invented in the Fertile Crescent. Civilization begins 1,000 years ago. Writing invented. History begins. Pyramids built in Egypt 3,000 years ago. Classical civilizations, Greece, Rome, China. Everything before agriculture is prehistory, before civilization, before meaningful human achievement. This narrative is clean, neat, easy to teach, but it has a problem. Gunung Padang, the Göbekli Tepe precedent. In Turkey, Göbekli Tepe stands 11,600 years old, built by hunter-gatherers who hadn't invented agriculture yet. A temple-complex, organized, advanced. It challenged the narrative that civilization required agriculture. Mainstream archaeology eventually accepted Göbekli Tepe, incorporated it into the narrative. But they didn't revise the fundamental assumption: civilization can only emerge recently. Then Gunung Padang emerged, 400 years older than Göbekli Tepe. Same problem, but bigger. Much bigger. The technology. Question: to build Gunung Padang, you need knowledge of engineering, geometry, and organization. You need sophisticated tools. Where did this knowledge come from? It must have developed over generations. Which means if Gunung Padang is 27,000 years old, there were earlier pyramids. Where are they? The lost precursors. If Gunung Padang represents the apex of a 27,000-year-old civilization, there should be evidence of earlier stages. Primitive structures, experimental constructions. We don't find them. Or they're underwater, or they've been destroyed. But logically, they should exist. The underwater hypothesis. 27,000 years ago, a coastal civilization would have built on lower coastlines. Then the Ice Age ended. Sea levels rose. All evidence is now underwater, buried under sediment. Lost. How many sites are on the continental shelf? How many pyramids lie on the ocean floor? We've explored only 5% of the ocean. The rest is unknown. The preservation problem. For 27,000 years, Gunung Padang survived. Protected, buried, preserved by the jungle. But most structures wouldn't survive that long. For something to survive 27,000 years, it has to be made of durable stone, protected from the elements, and deliberately built to endure. Gunung Padang survives because it's all three. But what about the rest of their civilization? The homes, the tools, the daily life artifacts? Where are those? The population calculation. To build Gunung Padang required thousands of workers. Coordinated, fed. Organized. That suggests a large population, cities, and infrastructure. But we don't find evidence of Ice Age cities. Either the population lived in areas now underwater, their cities were built from perishable materials, or the sites are buried and undiscovered. The knowledge loss. Assuming an advanced civilization built Gunung Padang, what happened to them? Did they collapse? Did catastrophe strike? Whatever happened, their knowledge disappeared. No surviving records, just silent monuments. The pattern recognition. Every ancient civilization seemed to forget what came before. Egyptians built on foundations they didn't understand. Romans used stones they couldn't quarry. What if they were inheriting from collapsed civilizations? What if every culture we know was built on the ruins of an older one? And so on. Back 27,000 years. Back to Gunung Padang. The cyclical hypothesis. What if human history isn't linear progress? What if it's cyclical? Rise to peak, collapse, forgetting. Rise again. Gunung Padang would be evidence of an earlier peak, one that collapsed and was forgotten. And we're on the rising phase of a new cycle, building, learning. And future civilizations may one day rediscover our ruins, wondering, how did they do this? In 2015, excavation at Gunung Padang stopped. No official reason, just halted. And it hasn't resumed since. The timeline is revealing. In 2011, Dr. Natawijaja discovers the layers. By 2014, dating suggests 27 years. In 2015, the site gets a UNESCO tentative listing, which seems like validation. Then, the excavation is stopped. For the last 10 years, silence. Why? The official story is vague. Preservation concerns, further study needed. But these are generic explanations. Some researchers propose political pressure from international academic institutions threatened by the findings. Halting excavation prevents the narrative from shifting. Others suggest religious concerns, but the government's silence points to something else. What concerns some researchers is that evidence already discovered seems to have been suppressed. GPR data hasn't been fully released. Artifacts haven't been displayed. It's as if the evidence is being contained, kept from public scrutiny. Dr. Natawijaja, who once spoke widely, has gradually gone silent. Was he pressured? Was his funding cut? Mainstream archaeology acknowledges the data. They don't dispute the GPR scans or the stone structures. They just dispute the interpretation. It's natural geology, they claim. When evidence contradicts theory and theory remains unchanged, something other than science is happening. The media coverage also stopped. The story disappeared from major outlets. Was it a coincidence or active suppression? Since the halt, independent researchers have found it nearly impossible to get permits. This is the opposite of scientific transparency. If it's genuinely unstable, that's one thing. But if the findings are being controlled, that's another. This leads to the question, if Gunung Padang is just natural geology, why restrict access? Why not let researchers investigate and prove the skeptics wrong? Unless the skeptics are right. Other discoveries faced resistance, but eventually, evidence wins. With Gunung Padang, that hasn't happened. Why is it different? The age. 27,000 years isn't just old. It's Ice Age old. It suggests civilization when supposedly only primitive hunter-gatherers existed. That's not a small revision to history. That's a complete overthrow. And perhaps the evidence is too revolutionary to manage. Gunung Padang is remarkable, but it's not unique. Around the world, similar sites suggest a pattern. Ancient structures, unexplained origins, older than they should be, and all facing similar academic skepticism. Yonaguni Monument, Japan. Off the coast of Okinawa, underwater formations resemble a massive stepped pyramid. Arranged stones, geometric patterns. Terraces dating analysis suggests 8,000 to 10,000 years of age, possibly older, mainstream archaeology. It's natural rock formation. But natural rock doesn't form perfect right angles, doesn't create geometric terraces, yet the establishment insists it's geology, despite the precision. Bimini Road, the Bahamas. Underwater stone blocks arranged in a line for 700+ feet. Flat surfaces, geometric arrangement, evidence of purposeful construction. Radiocarbon dating suggests 10,000+ years of age. Mainstream archaeology, it's natural limestone formation. But natural limestone doesn't arrange itself into linear structures, yet skepticism persists. Puma Punku, Peru. Precisely fitted stone blocks without mortar, carved with such precision that tools can't fit between stones even now. Built by the Tiwanaku civilization, supposedly 100 years old. But Tiwanaku didn't have the technology to create such precision, and archaeological evidence suggests Puma Punku predates Tiwanaku by centuries. Who built it? No one knows. The establishment assigns credit to Tiwanaku anyway. The underwater correlation. Notice the pattern. Yonaguni and Bimini are underwater. This supports the Ice Age hypothesis. When sea levels were lower, coastal civilizations thrived. Built monuments, sea levels rose. Coasts flooded, monuments submerged. Any civilization that built on 27,000-year-old coastlines would be underwater now. The global distribution. These aren't isolated sites. Ancient pyramid-like structures appear globally. Egypt, Peru, Mexico, Japan, Indonesia, Cambodia, China. Not all built by the same civilization, separated by thousands of miles. Yet many share similar characteristics. Precision, scale, astronomical alignment, mystery of origin. What if they represent repeated attempts by different civilizations to replicate an ancient technique? A technique so old that its originators were forgotten, but the knowledge lingered, passed through oral tradition, copied by later cultures. The architectural language. Pyramids appear everywhere. Different sizes, different ages, different builders. But the pyramid form recurs. Again and again. Is this coincidence? Or evidence that pyramid building represents a fundamental human impulse? Or evidence that pyramid building was taught, transmitted, copied across cultures? The knowledge transfer theory. What if advanced knowledge survived the collapse of the original civilization? Fragments. Pieces, incomplete understanding, but enough to inspire later cultures to attempt similar construction. The Egyptians built pyramids inspired by half-remembered ancient knowledge. The Mayans built pyramids inspired by the same fragmentary information. Not independent invention, repeated attempts to recreate something from deep memory. The dating controversy. All these sites face similar academic skepticism regarding age. The dating is wrong. The methodology is flawed. It's natural formation. Yet the skepticism isn't accompanied by alternative dating studies, just dismissal. Without rigorous investigation, this pattern, global skepticism without counter-evidence, suggests something coordinated. The suppression theory. Some researchers propose deliberate suppression, a coordinated academic effort to maintain the established narrative. Why? Because admitting Gunung Padang, Yonaguni, Bimini, and others challenges the entire timeline. If these sites are real and old, human history must be completely rewritten. The institutional defense. Institutions naturally defend existing frameworks. New evidence that contradicts the framework is seen as attack, as threat. This isn't conspiracy. It's human nature, institutional inertia. But it prevents revolutionary discoveries from being properly investigated. The question they won't ask: what if all these sites, Gunung Padang, Yonaguni, Bimini, Pumapunku, and others, represent a global pattern? What if they're evidence of advanced civilization that existed before known history? What if that civilization collapsed, and newer civilizations built on its ruins? What if the question, how old is human civilization, has the wrong answer, and the correct answer is much older than we admit? If advanced civilization existed 27,000 years ago, what happened to it? Why did it collapse? Why did the knowledge vanish? The answer might be climate. The last glacial maximum. 27,000 years ago was the coldest point of the last ice age. Temperatures were brutal. Sea levels were 400+ feet lower. Ice sheets covered much of North America and Europe. Deserts expanded. Coastlines were completely different. Civilization, if it existed, would have been adapted to this world, living on lower coastlines in different climate zones, using different resources. The climate shift. Approximately 20,000 years ago, the climate began warming. Gradually at first, then more rapidly. By 10,000 years ago, the Ice Age had ended. Sea levels had risen, coastlines had shifted. The world was unrecognizable to those who'd known the Ice Age landscape. The coastal civilization extinction. If advanced civilization built on Ice Age coastlines, they were catastrophically vulnerable. As sea levels rose, coastal settlements flooded. Gone. Underwater. Lost populations would have fled inland. But inland regions might have been occupied by other groups. Conflict. Competition. Survival struggles. The knowledge-bearing classes might have been dispersed or killed. Surviving populations would have lost the technical knowledge, returned to simpler lifestyles. Everything built on coastal sites submerged, invisible, forgotten. The younger Dryas impact. Approximately 12,800 years ago, climate suddenly shifted again. A comet or meteor impact, the younger Dryas impact, caused rapid cooling. Famines. Chaos. This period saw the extinction of megafauna globally. Mammoths, giant sloths, massive bears, all vanished. Why does this matter? Because if a second collapse hit 12,800 years ago, it would have further devastated any remaining Ice Age civilization remnants. Göbekli Tepe was built right after the younger Dryas impact, as if survivors were desperately preserving knowledge. What about Gunung Padang? Was it already abandoned? Or did the impact destroy what remained? The knowledge preservation motive. If catastrophe was coming, or had already struck, survivors would have been motivated to preserve knowledge. Building monuments, encoding information in stone. Because stone survives, paper doesn't, memory doesn't. Gunung Padang might represent that impulse. A monument built not for glory, not for worship, but for preservation. Remember this, remember that advanced civilization existed. Remember that catastrophe can strike. Remember the knowledge. The civilization cycle pattern. Human history might follow a cycle. Rise. Peak. Catastrophe. Collapse, forgetting. And rise again. Gunung Padang would represent the peak of an earlier cycle. We're in a new cycle, rising from the ruins. The evidence of previous cycles. We see evidence of this pattern repeatedly. Bronze Age collapse. Advanced civilizations fell simultaneously around 1200 BC. Fall of Rome. Advanced civilization collapsed. Pre-Columbian collapse. Advanced Mayan, Aztec, and other American civilizations collapsed. Each collapse followed by centuries of reduced complexity. The ocean floor evidence. The continental shelf, areas now underwater but previously above sea level, remains largely unexplored. How many sites lie 300 feet below the ocean surface? How many submerged cities? Modern underwater archaeology is finding new sites annually. The catastrophe warning. If this cycle is real, then catastrophe is cyclical. It's happened before, multiple times, each time destroying advanced civilization, each time forcing humanity to rebuild. The current vulnerability. We live in an era of technological advancement, but we're vulnerable to the same catastrophes. Climate change, asteroid impact, super volcano. If catastrophe struck tomorrow, how much of our knowledge would survive? Digital data would be inaccessible. Only stone monuments would remain. The message: Gunung Padang is telling us something. We built this. We had knowledge. We were advanced. Then catastrophe struck, we vanished. But this remains. Remember us. And the deeper message: you will vanish too, unless you preserve knowledge, unless you build for eternity. Are we listening? Gunung Padang isn't just a pile of stones. It's a battlefield, not of armies, but of ideas. Two sides, two worldviews. One hill in West Java caught in the middle. Side 1, the revolutionaries. On one side are the researchers who say Gunung Padang is a man-made, multi-layered pyramid. They argue the hill is a constructed core of sculpted lava, with deep units dating back tens of thousands of years and internal chambers. To them, it's the oldest pyramid-like structure on Earth, a direct challenge to when civilization began. Side 2, the gatekeepers. On the other side are most mainstream archaeologists and geologists. They counter that the hill is primarily a natural volcanic formation, with only the upper terraces being man-made. They argue the deep dating is unreliable, built on weak associations. A major paper arguing for its great age was even retracted after criticism. To them, Gunung Padang is an impressive megalithic site, but not world-shattering. The clash. Both sides agree the summit terraces are man-made and the site has multiple phases. They disagree violently on the age of the lower layers and whether this is a pyramid or just a sacred hill modified over time. The result: papers published, attacked, then withdrawn. Researchers defending their work while others warn of pseudoscience. The deeper issue. Gunung Padang isn't only about one site. It's about how far back human sophistication can really go, and who controls the official story of human history. And right now, the answer is messy. We have enough evidence to say it's more than a random hill, but not enough to close the case. So the site sits there, a stone question mark on a green hill, waiting for someone brave enough and honest enough to finish the work properly. Forget the debates for a moment. Step back. Stand on that hill in West Java, surrounded by stacked stones, terraces, and jungle wind. Ask one question: what if the most radical version is true? If it's really that old? If Gunung Padang's deepest layers truly date back tens of thousands of years, then civilization did not begin 5,000, 10,000 years ago. Humans were organizing large labor forces during the Ice Age. Our story is incomplete by an entire cycle of civilization. Memory of that earlier age survived only as myths, if it's only a later megalith. Even if the extreme dates are wrong, it would still be one of Southeast Asia's most complex megalithic sanctuaries, a place used and modified over thousands of years. Gunung Padang, in that view, is a vertical timeline in stone. The real warning. Whether it's 3,000 years old or 27,000, Gunung Padang carries a warning. Knowledge is fragile. If an earlier advanced culture collapsed, they probably thought they were permanent. Today, we argue just to agree they even existed. We are not different. We assume our digital archives will survive. But if power fails, what remains? And even then, future people may stand on our ruins and argue, natural formation. The choice in front of us, Gunung Padang, forces a decision on how we treat uncomfortable evidence. We can dismiss it, swallow it uncritically, or do the hard thing. Reopen the case, dig carefully, and accept wherever the data leads. If we choose the third path, Gunung Padang could either rewrite human history or become a cautionary tale. It teaches us to question authority without abandoning rigor. The final image: picture this: night at Gunung Padang. You're standing on either the roof of the oldest pyramid on Earth or the summit of a sacred hill. In both versions, one truth remains. Someone, long before you, thought this place mattered enough to leave a mark that would outlast their own name. They're gone. You're here. And the question hanging in the dark is no longer, how old is this? It's, what are we building that will still be here when we are gone?